what people ask is, how do I create an audiobook? So of course I thought of you. Listen, I've made a lot of mistakes in this area, and I have to be honest, I love mistakes. Now, up to a point, like not in perpetuity, okay? But if you can make a couple of errors, if I can make a couple of errors that ultimately get me to where I want to go, then I'm grateful for those errors. And so maybe that's just the way I make myself feel better about the fact that I've made a lot of them over the years, many of them in the area of audiobook production and dissemination.
Right.
So back in the day when I was doing my audiobooks, and I only have an audiobook of You Cannot Be Serious and Enough.
Okay.
The charge that companies were charging to produce your audiobook was north of $10,000.
Wow.
Okay. And so, right. No. The answer was just no.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy, right? So I did it, of course, myself. I did it myself. And there were a lot of lessons learned, and there were things that went well, and there were things that went well. But the reason that I wanted to chat with you about this is for multiple reasons. Number one, this is what you do. Right. So you produce podcasts, you produce audiobooks, you're extremely knowledgeable. You're much more knowledgeable about the space of audiobooks than I am, because you want to be. Like, that's kind of more of my peripheral world.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to be?
Yeah, I kind of want to be. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm in it. So like, well, I better learn about it and do it better.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, it's gotten much more, as with everything else in the book industry, it's gotten much more difficult in the sense that it's gotten easier and it's gotten more difficult. So it's gotten easier because your access is greater. It's gotten more difficult because the parameters are greater. So you can no longer just upload crap to ACX, Audible, and have them accept it and sell it. So when people say to me, Elizabeth, let's talk about the audiobook, which they often do before they've even released the paperback or the ebook, because they've heard, oh, audiobooks are so lucrative, they sell so many, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing that you wouldn't do, and this is why I have so much respect for you. You would not go out and say, I sold 300 audiobooks in a week and you can too, just follow my plan. Because you know, although your plan, your approach has merit.
Right.
I tell people when they ask me now, and it's not to be rude at all, when they say, what about the audiobook? My response is, you're asking the wrong question. So instead of asking, how do I create an audiobook? The question I want people to be asking is, how will I sell this darn thing once I get it created? Because whether you spend your own time or money or whatever it is, it's an investment.
Right.
And so just like a book or a paperback or an ebook, hardback, whatever you do, to put it out there and have it not sell is extremely upsetting.
Yeah.
A drag.
But you're saying the right thing, by the way. Like, an audiobook is not different than a book. I don't know why people think that. Like, it's its own special unicorn, and I just want to make a cool audiobook. It's not.
I know why people think that. Do you want to know why?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm interested in your opinion.
Because it's the next, like, oh, this is the thing. It's bright. It's sort of bright, shiny object, but it's not meant as a distraction.
Right.
It's thought of as like, okay, the ebook, it's like anything else. You create 7 courses, and when none of them sell, you go, oh, it's not my marketing strategy. It's not my audience. It's not my social media posting. It's not my connecting with people. I've got to create another course.
It's the course. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, how do you create an audiobook? Write a really good book that people will want to read. That's how you create an audiobook, and that's how you sell it.
And so let's talk. So I have a list to keep myself on track. So because we can't possibly cover all the ins and outs of audiobook production. I mean, we could go on for 6 hours and still not cover it all. Right. The bottom line for me, for anybody who's watching this live or on the replay, is if you're really serious about wanting to create an audiobook, talk to Drew. That's my true recommendation, because you are, number one, you're super fair in your pricing. And I want to make that super clear. So when I said north of $10,000, you and I very much had have the same philosophy on that.
Yep. Definitely.
You also really understand the technology of it.
Yeah. And that's just a byproduct of having been in the technology business for years, and producing my own podcast for years. And, so yeah, you can't help but know it. It's not that complicated, but if you don't want to know it, then, how much time do you really want to spend like determining whether or not your noise floor is correct?
It's like publishing a book, right? If you're going to go on to publish like 10 more books, then maybe you want to know the process. But if you're not, you don't care and you just hire someone to do it. Right,
exactly. Unless you like build your own house, you hire a carpenter to fix something. So,
well, I don't. I build a house myself.
Yeah, I noticed that. But
yeah. Okay. That's not something I'm going to stop in 2021.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, okay, what I wanted to talk about that I think would be most effective is two things. Mm-hmm. One, what are the biggest mistakes that both you and I see when people are creating audiobooks or thinking about creating audiobooks? Mm-hmm. And then two, I want to talk about you in these 300 books a week, because I want, you and I are both very transparent people. So, when people come out and they say, well, I sold 6,000 books in a week, I'm always like, show me your list, because it's not, you're comparing apples and oranges. If you say, you can do it, I did it, you can do it too. And the answer is you absolutely can, but you may need to take 10 months to build a list first.
Yeah. Or, 10 months to write the book or create the content that will matter to people.
Will matter to people.
Yeah. We'll get into that for sure. Sometimes I'm a little overly brutal, but I'd rather be honest with people and based on my experience than to have somebody like get all excited about a project and give us money and then be super deflated because they don't sell any books.
And that's 100% how I feel. So I try not to be negative. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just trying to be a realist. And what I tell every single one of my clients and every single person who I talk to is, you can have the greatest book, in my opinion, because that's all it is, on the planet, and sell 2.
Right. It's possible.
It's possible. You can also have like a book I wouldn't touch. I mean, no offense, but you can write 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
And sell millions and millions and millions. So it comes down to more that, and people are often disappointed. And that's why I don't touch marketing very much, because the responsibility is on the author.
Yeah.
As is the case with the audiobooks. So the biggest mistake that I see, and I want to hear from you too. There are a couple of them. Number one, let's talk about the actual recording of it.
Okay.
So people like to hear authors record their own book, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only sense, SENSE, that a listener, a person is using when they listen to your audiobook is their ears.
Right.
So if you are going to read your audiobook, like this week, I need to go. Last week, I went to the store, and when I got there, I got a basket, and I went into the aisle, and it was crowded, and it was really scary.
Yeah.
No.
Right. It's exactly
right.
Especially if that's the first time they're going to hear your voice. Literally. Right. Yeah. You will lose the audience that way.
And where the disconnect on that comes, in my experience, is not that an author is incapable of narrating their own book. It's because they want to get through it so fast.
Yeah. Yes.
That they're reading and you hear the pages turning and they have no inflection in their voice. So make friends with your book for the time that it's going to take you to read it, and pretend that you're speaking to an audience.
Yeah. That's important, I think. I always try and tell people, and this is why we do let's have a Zoom call first before we even decide to produce your audiobook. Because when you get to know somebody, even though it's on Zoom for a half hour, it doesn't matter. Like when the person gets on and they're quiet and they're just, they don't want to be on camera. And that is an indicator that you might not be a good candidate to read your book.
Yeah.
Because you have to read your book like you believe it. And even the ACX people will tell you that's part of the quality of the product. So,
and ACX for people is Audible's. It's kind of like we have KDP and Amazon. We have ACX and Audible. It's like depends if you're the consumer or the right. Are you the consumer or are you the producer?
Right.
Agreed. And I love that you do that, because you do a great upfront coaching, basically a coaching session on how to do this.
Yeah. Are you even ready to do this? Are you ready? This is not just sit down and read a book like you have coffee. It's not.
And please don't have coffee while you're doing it is
No,
like
you
the
can't.
other thing. I mean, there's a whole list of do's and don'ts that, I mean, you can find anywhere. And I know you give those to people too, but it feels odd. I remember when I first started speaking, like, and this was when I worked in consult. I mean, let's not do the math. It was a long time ago, but somebody who was coaching me on speaking said, if you feel like you're talking too slowly, slow down a little bit more.
Right. Yes.
And I was like, what?
That's true.
And, put what is an uncomfortable amount of pause between your sentences.
And I'll tell you one thing that has sort of ruined, not hasn't ruined people, but it's colored their judgment in a negative way or not a helpful way in terms of narrating their own audiobook would be YouTube and podcasts. Reading your audiobook is not like making a podcast. So everybody thinks like, oh, well, I do a podcast when like this is a podcast, but this would not be an audiobook. Like we can casual, we're speaking quickly, we're gesturing, we're doing, that's not how you read an audiobook.
No.
And a lot of people forget that, or they think like, well, people are on YouTube or I don't make YouTube videos, but it's not making an audiobook either.
Well, and there's a reason, that with Audible specifically, and I'm a big fan of Chirp now. Do you know about Chirp books?
I do. Yeah.
That was cute. Cute logo. It'll get me every time. You can the user can speed it up.
Yeah, sure.
So going too slow is now, but I mean, I don't want to feel like I'm trudging through mud listening to someone read their book, but there are ways around those sorts of things. So the technical end of it, but what I find in what I do is that people get really hung up on the technical end, like what kind of a mic do I need? And I need a studio and I need this. And that's why I'm like, talk to Drew. Yeah. Because you make it so simple. You just give them everything they need.
Yeah, like a lot of people make the mistake of, or especially if they've done podcasting, or they're doing these days. Everybody's on Zoom, so everybody thinks like, "Oh, I'm ready to go," and they do the like, "Oh, I have my Blue Yeti mic that I got from Best Buy, or my Snowball mic, the most popular mics that they get from Amazon or whatever. I'm ready to go." But you're really not, because ACX, they're really, really sticklers about the quality of the audio, and that's because they are trying to always have a quality product in Audible. Anybody who has is an Audible customer knows that they're super liberal. Like, I'm going to download Elizabeth's book, listen to it, and 3 weeks later say, I don't like this book. And Audible just says, okay, here's your credit back. They don't even ask a question at this point.
Now.
Yeah. So they do not want people coming back and saying, this book is unlistenable. Because
that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. They do not want that. They are absolutely dead set against that. So you can't have a squeaking chair. You can't have like rustling windbreaker. You can't have food. You can't have big mic pops and plosives and all kinds of stuff. So the technical part of that is like, we usually will give people one of these. This is Zoom beforehand. Not give it. We're gonna lend it to you, and then we'll send you one of these, which is like a Rode Procaster. Can you see? It's cool, professional looking microphone. So you don't have to think about that. We set it up for you. We send it to you, and then you get to like, we'll take an hour or so. We'll make sure your audio levels are right, that you're in a quiet place, and go, and you can start reading. Then you just give it back to us when we do the engineering. So as long as you're comfortable with like, you have to be in a dead quiet place, figure that you can read about 9,000 words an hour max, know that you're not going to read your whole book in 2 days. It's not going to happen, because even if you try to do that, you will get fatigued. So by chapter 3 and 4, your voice is flat and you're not excited anymore and you're tired. So we teach all of those things, but you can overcome the technical things. We can get you over that. Anybody can overcome the technical stuff. You don't have to know how to use like Adobe Audition. Like we do that. So yeah, but it's more so the process of the reading, I think. Like, can you do
agree with you.
Really, is your personality set out for that?
Okay, so awesome question. And even though it just says Facebook user, I know exactly who it is. So she said, I feel it in my bones that I don't want to do this myself. Part of the reason is that I'm not a native English speaker. Is it a real no-no to outsource this? And the answer is no, it's not a real no-no. Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
I think it depends on what the topic is and who the author is and who your audience is. So if your audience is used to hearing you and your accent, for the last 3 or 4 years in a podcast or on YouTube or whatever, by all means, read the book, because that's how they know you. Nothing wrong with that. If they've never heard you before and it's truly a technical struggle to read English, it's not a no-no at all. You just have to understand that, well, they've never heard you before. So it matters. The voice in their head will matter. They think that's you. So you have to pick a narrator that matches you.
If you're a man, do not hire a woman to narrate your book. That, in my world, is a no-no.
Yeah. And another thing that's a bit of a no-no too, and I've had this happen. I mean, clearly you can hear me. I have a particular type of voice. My voice isn't set for everything. It's not perfect for everything at all. But I have had male clients, male authors that don't sound like me at all. Their personality is not me at all. Their voice doesn't sound like me at all. And they ask if I would read the book. And it's like, well, people, if they've never heard you, they think I am you then. Like my voice becomes you. It's way better to just have somebody matched, even to a certain extent, to your voice type, your personality type, your inflections. It's a thing, you know?
So I think those are beautiful points. And it comes down to kind of who are you? How big is your platform? Who knows you? Who doesn't know? And so with that in mind, let's
is it fiction or nonfiction? I think that matters too.
All day. Because if it's nonfiction, your audiobook is a beautiful opportunity for you to build a rapport with your audience. It's not, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about whether you have, because you have a pretty sizable audience. And I've always found you so fascinating because it kind of happened by accident, which people both love and hate to hear. In the end, to me, it didn't happen by accident because your intention was always just to be of service. So you run a couple groups on anxiety. You have the Anxious Truth, the book, now the audiobook. You run the the group, the Facebook group, which how big is that now?
5,000 plus.
Yeah. And it's very engaged. So let's be very clear that you have a topic much like my twins stuff, right? So you and I have talked about this before. It's interesting that there are certain topics that people are literally desperate to get help with, and they're trying so hard to find the right person to help them. So even though there are a lot of people in the anxiety space, and a lot of them are great, there are people who have found you, love your tone, love your style, love your no bullshit approach. I'm just going to say it. Yeah. And it just keeps growing like that. So when you say you sold 300 audiobooks, can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Sure. Yeah.
So was that mainly through the group?
I'll be honest with you. I don't exactly know.
Okay.
Because it's gotten to the point where I don't, look, a lot of people, you put a book out or whatever, and the people that got your book because they're your family, they're your friends, they're your hardcore fans or whatever it is, followers or, whoever it happens to be. It's gotten large enough so that I actually don't even know who they are now. Instagram seems to be a big driver, and I only know that because now I see people are posting pictures on Instagram that I've never seen before of pages.
That's awesome.
So I think it's just driven by the podcast, the audience, the social media community at large. The group is a big deal. Every day there are discussions about my book and chapters of my book in my group that I don't start. They start them themselves, and they go off on their own and talk about it. So I guess it's just the community at large.
But the thing that I think is remarkable, and at the risk of, I'm going to make a suggestion, and if you're like, no, please don't do that, then just say, no, please don't do that. But if people want to see how to really run a big group, if you're wondering, I'm a member of a lot of groups, and I've unmembershiped myself. I've left a lot of groups because they're just kind of all over. And I'm not saying that judgmentally. It's like there's no orchestration to them, right?
Yeah.
So there are a couple people I know of who have groups that are really well organized and really well run. You're definitely one of them. Yeah. Another one is the Act Now group by my clients, Natalie Phillips and Reggie Corona. So they have a book, Act Now, and it's an accountability thing. Okay. And they're branding, it's consistency. That's what I see. And you are so consistent. And I think one of the challenges, do you not think so?
No, I think I'm almost consistent to a fault.
I agree. I was like, please don't disagree with me on this because we're going to go to war. Yeah, we're going to have a fight.
We're going to have a fight.
Another one. We're going to have another one.
It's super important to me, intentionally. Yes.
And I know that when people are first starting, it's uncomfortable to be that consistent because they're dealing with imposter syndrome and they're dealing with, no one's commenting, no one's liking, no one's paying attention. And this is a whole separate topic. Yeah. But what I'm trying to get to here is when you have an audiobook, whether it's an audiobook or an ebook or a paperback,
right?
That's why we always come back to the why and what's your intention, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, honestly, how did I sell 300 audiobooks? Where they came from, I don't know. A lot of people were asking over and over and over, when's the audiobook? So I knew there was a pent up demand, but I've also sold over 3,000 copies of the print and Kindle version already that for months
Yeah.
now. So, it's just one big audience. The
So it's
audiobook,
not like, thank you for
it's
that,
not a
because it's not
professional
like
audience.
you sold 2 books and you were like, well, the audiobook must be the
The audiobook
solution.
do it.
No.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's all the same audience. And some people prefer listening versus reading. Some people electronic versus print, doesn't matter. A lot of people I discovered want both. They have the paper version, but that's particular to my topic also. I have to acknowledge.
Agreed.
Yeah, they want to be able to listen on the go while they're doing their exposures and things of that nature, and they're doing the work. They want to be able to listen to the book. So that's particular to my particular topic. If it's nonfiction and you're doing a how-to kind of thing, you're probably going to get a lot more traction in audio because people will listen while they do the work you're telling them to do.
Yeah. Or they like the situation that I'm considering, and believe me, if I do this, I'm hiring you immediately because I'm not doing this myself ever again, but I'm considering doing, holy shit, I'm having twins as an audio, because it occurs to me that many new moms of twins, they're not reading, they're listening while they're feeding or they're cleaning or whatever they're doing. The thing is, what's interesting to me about that book, and this is just a general book marketing point, is that particular book, Holy Shit, I'm Having Twins, the paperback outsells the ebook by leaps and bounds because people want to highlight and dog ear and all that. Enough, the ebook is it enough? You cannot be serious. The ebook outsold the paperback because it wasn't as. So it just depends. I can see people getting yours both for both reasons. They want to highlight stuff in the paperback or the Kindle.
Yep.
If they do it that way, and they want to listen.
Yeah, I think it's a fair number of people. How many of the 300 copies, that I sold in the first week are duplicate? I don't know that. I honestly don't know how many people have both a printed, whether it's or paper and audio. I don't know. But yeah, especially and for my topic also, I can tell you exactly how that kind of worked. I had, it was just pent up demand. So the people who they're impatient sometimes too, like especially in my topic, unfortunately, and I don't like this, but I'm addressing people who sometimes are just really desperate for relief. So they can download the Kindle version. They'll get it, even though they'd rather have the print. Some people could wait the 6-7 days to get the book or 3 days.
Sometimes they do both. They'll download the Kindle while they're waiting for the paperback.
I did find that. And some people who have like the Kindle Unlimited or they're in an Amazon subscription, it's nothing. They just, because they don't have to pay for it, which is great. And then the audiobook is just, there are people waiting and asking me every week, when's it coming out? I'm like, I don't know. I'm waiting for ACX. Like I'm doing the fast as I can,
I'm getting there.
Here's
this is a great point. People often think, well, I want the audiobook to come out at the same time as the paperback and the ebook. And I actually caution against that for 2 reasons. One, and you can speak to this, ACX Audible, their upload time can take 2 months. You've got a wait there, right? But the second thing is, and you're experiencing this right now, and I experienced it with Enough. If you release the audiobook later, you give the paperback and ebook a chance to get some traction, and then you have something else to talk about.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think. I mean, is it possible to release the audiobook at the same time? Probably, it's possible. I don't believe it's possible at this point. You'll have some luck. You roll the dice that everything drops on the same day.
I don't think it is possible unless you're with a traditional house.
It would be luck. Well, if you're self-publishing, you're doing KDP and ACX, having those release and become available on the same day. I don't even know what would have to be in alignment for that to happen.
I think it's not even. I have to be honest. I think it's not possible.
Yeah,
because the ebook will release before the paperback, and it's 12 to 7.
You have no control.
No control.
With ACX, at this point, and they've been very, you're probably getting emails too, like, we're sorry. And I think this speaks to our original topic. A global pandemic hits, and in my business specifically, we're in podcast and audio production. Everybody decided they needed to have a podcast, and everybody thought they would do an audiobook, which I think speaks to another thing. A lot of people seem to think that an audiobook is its own kind of thing. Like I literally have people who will say, well, I'm not going to write a book. I just want to do an audiobook. I don't know how that became a thing. They thought that you don't write a book. You just somehow sit down with a microphone and, well, I don't want to write a book. I just want to put out an audio.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Have you run across that?
Well, no, I haven't run across that. But what I have run across is people who their book becomes a podcast series. So each chapter is an episode of a podcast, which I don't think, by the way, is a particularly quote unquote bad idea.
Yeah.
But again, what I want to caution against is all these are just great ideas. They're not all great ideas, but all of these are just ideas.
Right.
So what happens is people get so like, oh God, is that the right thing? And then they just go do it all and there's no plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So what I think is interesting. So when you recorded the audio version of The Anxious Truth, is it just the book or do you have supplemental content?
It was just the book. I didn't add any, I mean, look, but I also have a new podcast episode every single week. It's been going for 6 years now. So there's plenty of extra content.
Yeah.
I didn't have to add any to my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a big book. It's 72,000 word book. So there was a lot to read to begin with.
A lot to read.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a haul.
So I have 2 clients right now where so one of my fundamental beliefs, and I believe this because I've seen it. It's not just like an esoteric, well, I think this might be true. I've seen it, is that people will read a book and then they will buy the audiobook simply because it was a great book. And then the audiobook has bonus content. Yeah. So the bonus content can be like David Goggins is a great example. He's that's the first one I knew of that did this.
Right.
Interviews with the author in between each chapter. So I have 2 clients who we're working on this right now, where in between each chapter, because I either ghost wrote their book or helped them write their book, I'm very familiar with the content and with them. So I'm going to ask questions. We're just going to do 5 minutes in between each chapter. Like what were you thinking, or blah, 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 blah. But you and I talked about this because it's not as simple. I thought, hey, Simple Simon, let's just get on Revcaster or podcast, whatever it's called, some Zencaster, whatever, and have the 2. And you were, we're still experimenting with this to figure it out. So the bottom line is pretty soon you'll have a solution to this problem. But that bonus content is a great opportunity for readers to get to know you better or to get to know you, period. And again, we're talking about the nonfiction space here, really.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea. So the one we're working together right now, I'm really excited to see how that works out.
Me too. Too.
There are technical challenges, but we're figuring those out. That's not a thing.
And I don't feel like the technical challenges are a reason for people to throw in the towel on it.
No, there's a way around it all. Yeah, there's a way around it.
But it's not $5 to have it produced. Okay. So I think that people need to have, more than anything else, this notion of if I produce it, they will buy it is not a thing. Yeah.
But I think that holds true just in the whole book space, but
it holds true in every space.
Right. Like if I somehow or other, and I always go back to this, how do I sell my audiobook, which is where we kind of started. Like, do we need another of that book is the question I usually ask. And I know that sounds terrible, but if you want to write a book and then record an audiobook just because you want to do that, and you think it will be helpful to maybe 5 people in the world, and you're okay if that helps 5 people, absolutely do it. Absolutely. If you're okay if no one reads it and you just do it for yourself, I would be behind that project 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
But there's always that fear of like, well, tell me what your book, and we get it in the podcast space too. Like, okay, what's the podcast all about? Before I take your money to produce your podcast, what's your podcast about? Oh, it's me and a couple of buddies. We get together once a week. We talk about gaming. I'm like, yeah, we already have 10,000 of that podcast. Like, do it. But do you really want to pay us to produce that podcast? Just do it yourself, because it might not ever lead to anything.
Well, and it's about understanding who's your market.
Yeah.
How saturated it. Honestly, I don't care how saturated. For me, a super saturated market, in whether we're talking about books, audiobooks, or like rubber bands, is a great thing. Because if the market is super saturated, to me, it means there's a huge demand.
That's true.
But it also can mean, on the flip side, that a lot of creators have seen what they perceive to be a huge demand. And so you've got 100 creators of something and only 2 of them are decent. The other 98, are. So it really does come down to what is your plan to differentiate yourself? Number 1.
Yeah.
And well, that's number 2. Number 1 really is, what is your plan to get the word out about this thing? Because if you think about it, and this isn't me trying to be negative, like,
yeah.
Spanx, Are you familiar with Spanx?
Yeah, it's a clothing thing, right?
Don't tell me if you own them. I mean, it's like a body shaping thing. Like I don't.
I would tell you if I own them.
I mean, you probably would actually, but yeah. So Spanx is, it's Sarah Blakely. It's like world renowned, right? She's
an example I hear all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I didn't get, and I do, and I don't know why, I'm a little offended. If I didn't get a Spanx ad in my Facebook feed every like 10 posts, I would forget about Spanx. And they know that.
Yeah.
So they keep reminding me. And I think that people often have a lots of times writing and publishing a book and creating an audiobook are not about writing and publishing a book and creating an audiobook. It's actually about your preconceived notions when it comes to putting that thing out, and how far are you willing to go outside your comfort zone to reach the people who truly need your voice.
Yeah, it's a really good question. How far are you willing to go? What are the resources that you have and everybody can make the best plan that possible, but if you don't have the resources, and the resources could be your time, your effort. It doesn't have to be writing a check all the time, but that is kind of part of it. Like, the realism, I think we have to face the realism that the days that you and your 400 Facebook friends and your 200 Instagram followers can somehow create a book that sells 10,000 copies, doesn't happen.
I don't think
it's so rare. I don't even know what the odds are against that, but they are highly against that.
They're highly against it. You can always be the exception. I don't recommend banking on being an exception. I think that's a scary thing. That's like playing the lottery and hoping
you have to buy that exception. Enough money buys you.
Don't even get me started on that. Right.
I mean, you could promote the hell out of your book and your audiobook if you have the checkbook to do that with,
but you can also do it, dare I say, wrong. So I could give somebody $1 million tomorrow and say, have at it. And they could blow through $1 million on Facebook ads, promoting to the wrong audience, and be nowhere better.
I agree.
For having done it.
It's not guaranteed just because you have
not guaranteed.
You're right. That's true.
So it really is important. And that's, from Manuscript to Market, which is my launch course, that's very much what it's focused on. Launching a book is not about whether it's an audiobook or any other version. It's not about throwing the book out there and going, well, is it going to become a bestseller? It's about having a plan for connecting with and building relationships with your audience.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. It's dead on accurate. How are you going to do that? And
how are you going to do that?
Are you already doing it? Do you already have an audience? All that matters. And it matters for the audiobook just as much as it does the print. To me, the audiobook, it's a great opportunity for additional content and building stickiness with your audience for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's just an extension of the product that whatever you wrote, it's an extension of that. In nonfiction, I would say. In fiction, maybe it's different. I don't claim any special knowledge there. It's a whole different.
I'm not super, the fiction, I told you about this in a Facebook message, voice message yesterday, like the two areas, and I guess I understand this, of fiction that sell really well, both as paperbacks and as audios, are erotic fiction and any kind of erotic fiction, any kind of romance, contemporary romance, whether it's erotic or not, and AI. So artificial intelligence stuff, like those readers, Comic-Con, it says it all, that we have a conference, those readers are fans. They are fans. That is a whole different world from like memoir and nonfiction, which is where I sit. I have a couple of fiction clients, but I basically sit in the nonfiction and memoir space. I think that having that plan, and I'll tell people, if you're having trouble selling the paperback and or the ebook, don't release another product yet.
No, probably not. It would be a waste of money to make an audiobook then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. But
the point is, it's totally doable. Is that's kind of the message that I want to send, is it's doable. It doesn't have to break the bank, but it is an investment.
It is. I'm willing to throw it out there. I'm pretty transparent with this stuff, but the average person who writes a book, and I can only give you our pricing, but if you write a book and that book is 50,000 words long, for instance, it's a nonfiction book. I wouldn't take a fiction book, to be honest with you. We're not qualified for that. A fiction book is a little bit different because producing a fiction book is like producing a record album for a band or directing a movie. And I'm not, I don't feel comfortable there. But nonfiction, 50,000 words, it's going to take you, 9,000. It's going to take you 5 hours to read that, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're going to charge you, $200 somewhat dollars an hour to master that book. We're going to do some coaching up front. You're going to get away with under $2,000, probably somewhere in that neighborhood. It's not a $10,000 affair. No. But it's not a $200 affair either.
No. And just the basic, somewhere around $2,000, by the way, is 100% fair. Yeah. And I feel like most people want to I remember hearing once that Target, and this was 15 years ago, spent like $2 million in the month of December on marketing. Yeah. And I remember being so wowed by that. Like, wow, $2 million on marketing. But then the next paragraph alerted me that that's because they expect that marketing to bring in at least $2,001,000. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So marketing or investments are not meant to be just money thrown away. So if you're going to invest whatever it is, whatever the dollar amount is in anything, the goal is that you earn it back. By the way, you don't have to earn it back in money. Sometimes people, like when I go and buy my Brookstone massage chair, that's $3,000. I'm not going to earn that back actually I am, because I'm not going to have to go to the masseuse as often. Right. But I'm going to earn that back in just sheer joy. It's like you can't put a monetary value on sheer joy.
No, you can't. And if you're an author that has other things going on, maybe courses or webinars, or you're a speaker, then that's true. There is actual benefit in that. And I've had some people who were like, look, I don't care if I sell no audio. I might give it away. I know people who want to give their audiobook away as just a
lead magnet.
Yeah. And that's fine. If that's part of your business strategy, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
That's absolutely correct.
We should talk for a second, if you want to, about, is an audiobook lucrative? Like, what kind of money can you make on an audiobook? Well, this sort of sucks because but we talk about this all the time. Don't expect to get rich writing a book at all. But in the end, and I know we have slightly different views. You like to be non-exclusive with Audible. And I do. There are other places. And you know what? I feel you, because I want to support Chirp. I want to support all those other vendors. But when you look at the numbers, sadly, Amazon owns 95% of the book space. It's why we have no brick and mortar bookstores for the most part.
I know.
They control it, and they also control Audible and ACX now. What are you going to do? Yeah. So in the end, if you go exclusive with Amazon or Audible, ACX, all the same company now, they're going to give you 40%. So, and they will tell you how much your book costs. You don't get to set the price of your audiobook. So, like my audiobook, I think the printed version is $21.95. They've decided that the audiobook is $17.95, and I get 40% of that. And that's it.
Because if someone's a member of Audible, although their pricing just went down too, but it used to be $16.95 a month, and then that got you one credit and blah, blah, blah. So
right. And they have a whole complicated way to do it. And
it's very complicated.
Do I love it? No, I don't, but I have to acknowledge that they're going to sell 95% of all my audiobooks. So I'll just go there. They'll put you also at Amazon so people could buy it without an Audible subscription, and an iTunes. So you'll be on Apple books too.
Yeah.
But and you would think that, iTunes has got to be a big market. Yeah, no.
It's not. See, this is why I love talking to you, because it really, like, people, there's a term in the book industry, go wide, which means that your book is not exclusive to Amazon, right? So if you go wide, we're talking about ebooks specifically. Okay. You're not involved in KDP Select, and you're selling your book to Nook and Kobo and Google Play and iBooks and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, the Kindle and print, I'm not exclusive. It's in multiple places.
And I'm exclusive for my ebook, but I'm not exclusive for the paperback. This is a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But the point of the conversation is that there's no one right way to do it. It really depends on you, your platform, your genre, and your market. Like it 100%. So do people make, millions of dollars off their audio book? No. And the thing that I think is, oftentimes no. And the thing that I think is frustrating and is a hard reality for people, and was for me, is that it'll say that you make, so for example, I used to use a service, and I won't say who it is, but they said, an audiobook distributor, that you made 70%. Well, you do make 70%. You make 70% of the 25% that they make.
Yeah, right.
So I was getting like $1.14 per book sold. And I was like, this is not 70%. The book is selling for $23.95.
Yeah, I'm getting $1. Like, wait a minute, I could do math.
It's actually less lucrative. The most lucrative product in this whole thing that we're talking is your ebook.
That's true. That's actually true, because the people that distribute it for you also have the lowest cost to do it. So
exactly.
You know,
and you brought this up at the beginning of the chat, which is that ACX Audible, they have to build into their pricing structure the fact that so many people are going to return.
And literally some human being listened to my book. And especially as a first-time audiobook author, they may not have listened to every bit of it.
Yeah.
But, they listened to it.
But right.
Yeah.
And so it's about what are you doing within the, and I say this about the ebook too, because both the ebook and the audiobook are more dynamic than the paperback. So you can have links and you can have, hey, for more information on this, go to my website and blah, blah, blah. Right. But they are opportunities to build your following, to build your audience, but then you have to nurture that. So to your point, people give away an audiobook. Sometimes people don't make an audiobook. Now I just came up with, this could be just create a chapter or two.
I did that.
Did you?
Well, I mean, everybody was waiting so long, and they were patient that I literally took the chapters, my book. So I took all chapter 1, which is like 8 lessons or whatever it is. I stitched them together as one MP3, and I made a bookmark in the beginning and the end. Like, hey, here's a sample. If you want the whole book, go here. And get on the list, because it wasn't out at that time. And then I gave chapter 1 away, and it's been downloaded a lot of times. I have the Amazon bill to prove it.
But even if you, exactly. Yeah. Do you use S3?
S3, yeah. My S3 bucket stats. Yeah.
My S3, it's a problem. So the thing is that it's not a problem. I actually love S3. It's like the least expensive way ever to not have stuff on my server.
To do that. Yeah.
It's beautiful. But and shameless plug, we teach that and from Manuscript to Market, how to get everything up to S3. Yeah. So sometimes if you're not sure and you want to just dip your toe in, you don't have to record the whole book. Record 2 chapters. Do it in a good way. You don't even have to hire you or anybody else for this, because you're not going to upload it to ACX.
Right.
Do it, put it on your website as a lead magnet, give it away in exchange for someone's email address. And then at the end, it's like, if you enjoyed this, here's a link to the full book, and just send them to your paperback or your ebook. If you get a high enough demand for the audiobook, then go do it. Yeah.
Then, that's a great strategy.
Thank you. I feel like did that just come to me? I don't know. It's from Four Sigmatic, my non-official sponsor. They're going to sponsor me one day, Drew. You wait.
I'll give them a call when we're done.
Please do. Thank you. Can you? I'll have my people call their people and your people, and
Please hold some silence.
It's the cordyceps in here or something. I don't know. Anyway,
I think it's a strategy that more people should probably adopt. And honestly, if you wrote a 50,000 word book, and you can read 10,000 words in an hour or so.
Yeah.
In your bedroom in a quiet place with a decent $80 microphone, and it will be just fine.
That's correct. You go into your closet. I showed a picture of this. I was like in the closet for like 2 weeks, and you do it at night. Yeah. Because if you do it during the day, every bird that chirps, every dog that barks, every truck that drives by is going to get picked up on the mic. Yeah. But the carpet, if you have carpet in your closet and you have clothing hanging on the wall, they actually act as great sound barrier, like whatever you call it in your world, they
get in the room. That's all.
They dampen the sound or whatever.
Right, no,
and you do it. But
yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and it's an easy way to gauge whether or not you have whether your audience is going to buy into an audiobook. Is it going to have legs?
Is it going to have legs?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just, there are people, and I love asking, the question used to be, do you prefer paperback or ebook? And the results would depend on the day and the hour and all of this, but it'd be pretty well split. Like people who love their physical books, love their physical books. People who are into like reduce, reuse, recycle, they travel all the time and they don't care about keeping books. They're really into their ebooks. Well, now if you add in audiobook, right? Yeah. You get, the statistics, the data tell you that the market is booming on the audiobooks. And it is, but it's like the market's booming on podcasts, just like you said. You have to bring that down to you have to take the world and funnel it down to your office.
Yeah, or your audience. Like for me,
Yes.
if it helps at all, I literally asked. So when I was at the end of the process with Hillary and I was finishing the book, I literally asked my audience, like, because for a while I thought like, I'm not even going to print this book. Who wants print? Because I'm not a print book guy. And that would have been a huge, huge mistake.
Huge mistake.
They would have let me know. And they would have hit me over the head. So I would have got the message. But I said, I was a Saturday morning and I made like an Instagram poll and I asked my Facebook audience and I have a very engaged audience. I knew immediately, oh, no, this has to be print also, and it will be an audiobook. I knew the minute that the poll numbers were coming in, it was no joke. So if you have an active enough audience where you could get 700, 800, 900 responses in a couple hours, that's going to tell you. You should be recording.
It's going to tell you. And at the same time, I mean, 900 responses is very indicative. Now, 3 responses you have to be careful about only because people say all the time, oh my God, I would totally buy that. And then you go and you produce it and you release it and you're like, here it is. And I'm sorry, I don't have an internet connection today. It's a lot of this really is about numbers, and I'm not a numbers girl. You know this. I'm all about quality over quantity. I would rather that you had 10 people on your list who genuinely care and are paying attention than 100,000 who are like, who's Elizabeth? Why does she keep emailing me? That doesn't impress me. I don't. When people. Totally separate topic, another day. But it's about, we've gotten to this point in the world where, especially in the book space, people seem to be suggesting or declaring that it's about the size of your audience. And that's only true if that audience is engaged. Now, your audience is a great size and it's super engaged.
Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, those numbers are just vanity numbers. Okay.
Exactly. Like, is it about your ego or is it about actually making a difference?
Yeah.
But you can make, so I want to be very clear about something. People don't make a lot of money necessarily off the sale of a book or an audiobook, but where they do make money and impact whatever they're looking to do. Okay. Even if they're looking to make $1 million so they can just give it away, which I've known people who've said that, I'm like, that's amazing. That's delightful. Then I lost my point entirely.
Well, so no matter if I see what you're saying, like even if you don't have to keep the money, you have to have realistic expectation, and you kind of do have to know the numbers in the end.
Well, and that's where I was going with it, is it's not necessarily off the sale of the book. It's off the sale of the things that come after the book.
Right. What else? And if you're that type of person, so for me, how long have we been going? We're going a while, but
I'm about to cut myself off.
Yeah, it's totally fine. But for me, I had to also come to grips with, like, people would say all the time, like, well, now you could do speaking and you'll do this and do that, and keynotes and courses. And I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. I don't do that. So I had to come to grips with, like, oh, well, this does open up the ability to do that now if I want to. So I don't know. All that stuff has to enter into it. But none of this is automatic. Just make good decisions based on reality.
Just make good decisions.
Based on reality.
Our 3 key takeaways. 1, don't ask yourself how to create an audiobook. Ask how you're going to sell the damn thing.
Yeah.
2, do you have a meeting?
No, that's sorry, I can't turn that off.
I don't care. I just wanted to make sure you weren't late for someone.
No, I'm good.
2, don't sweat the technical stuff. Call Drew. And 3, think about how you can incorporate, different assets into your audiobook, how you can further engage. Don't think of your audiobook or your book or your book in any medium as like you're pushing it out. Think about how you're bringing people in.
Oh, I like it. That's pretty smart. You might know what you're talking about. Be careful.
I mean, I don't know. I've been doing it a while.
Things of you then.
Fly by the seat of my pants a lot, but a lot of lessons learned over here, Drew. A lot of lessons learned.
That's the way you do it.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Do this anytime. It's always fun.
Anybody has comments on the replay, just enter them in here, and questions, comments, concerns, and we'll.
I'm in the group. I'll answer. I don't mind.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, Drew's in the group, so.
All good.
All right, everyone. Carry on with your Monday.
Take care.
Talk to you later. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep getting the word out, pun intended. And if you're looking for a fun, productive workshop to get your book written, I invite you to check out my newest free on-demand book writing workshop, as well as a slew of other book writing and publishing resources over on my website, publishaprofitablebook.com. Again, thanks so much for joining in, and I'll talk to you again soon.